I'm the chairman of the Kenya National Alliance of Sugarcane Farmers Organizations, in brief, NASFO.
What's your name?
My name's Saulo and I'm busy Busolo.
So, first of all,
Yeah, the reaction of farmers is very good, very positive. I recall for a long time farmers have been calling for a ban on imports, which usually depress the sugarcane prices and the income of farmers. And to the extent now that Honorable Munya took the decision he took by blocking import surges into this country, we as the sugarcane farming community are more than happy. It's an action that has been long in coming. We've been wanting it, and we want to hail the government for the decision it has taken to protect the interests of the sugarcane farmer.
so as a chairman,
I think the reason perhaps why farmers from other parts of the country, including Western, have been feeling that they've not been receiving the same measure of protection as farmers elsewhere is due to perhaps bad politics. The question of protection of farmers is a question of the representatives who defend the farmers. I am the chairman of the Kenya National Alliance of Sugarcane Farmers Organizations. I can do just that much. We hold press conferences, we meet with the farmers, we issue out demands that concern the farmers. We expect these demands to be met or to be picked up by the representatives in parliament, where legislation is made, where laws can be made that can defend farmers. But where the representatives are weak, I think we have had that problem. I'll take the example of the budget. You notice a good number of MPs from Western Province cried that sugarcane was not included in the budget. But you know that budget is a parliamentary matter. These MPs are the ones that sit in parliament. Under the 2010 constitution, it's members of parliament that control budget, not the treasury the way it was previously. And the budget cycle begins roughly from October or thereabout. So one wonders where members of parliament have been from October through November, through December, up to July, June, when the treasury minister reads the budget is when they begin complaining. This, we believe, is something that is amounts to not in good faith. It's something that we as farmers are aware of. We need to expose these members of parliament that they have been sleeping on their job, and we as farmers representatives have tried our best. Now we are happy at long last. At least the government has responded by writing off the debts of the government-owned mills so that they can be privatized or leased as the minister insists. So for us, we hail the president's concern over the fate of the sugarcane farmers, and we want to salute him for his concern. Part of the problem we've had is AFA. You remember AFA came into being through disbandment of the previous commodity authorities that really were self-sufficient in terms of research, financing, surveillance, in terms of crops that have some importation aspect like sugarcane. But from the moment these crop authorities, commodity authorities were disbanded, AFA has not done as much. Precisely because AFA is the administrator of the Crops Act that came into being with the disbursement of the commodity authorities, so much sugar has been coming in. So much outcry has been made regarding sugar imports, and has had to take the efforts of President Uhuru's government under Minister Munya to clamp down on imports. We farmers, all the time in media, all the time through farmers meetings, have been crying that imports are killing the local industry. Other leaders within the industry, stakeholders, have also been crying the same. But so far nothing can be done until now. The government yesterday suspended the imports. Secondly, the issue has also laid within government itself. I served on the Kenya Sugar Board. I was instrumental in drawing up the import-export regulations of 2003. Over the time of the Sugar Board, we never saw import surges in this country. But with the disbandment of Sugar Board, the ministry of Agriculture had taken over, so that even just prior to disbandment of the Sugar Board, some appears in the Ministry of Agriculture centralized imports, so that all import permits were issued in the Kilimo House. And the Kilimo House, therefore, had people who had interest in importation, and that's where we've also been having problem. I think with the Minister Munya's entry at Kilimo House, his clampdown on import is something that we farmers welcome very much. Recall, farmers have been demanding protection. We've talked about protection, that sugarcane farmers are not protected. They had no law prior to Sugar Act. The Sugar Act came in, but Sugar Act was a government regulatory body. There were no regulations that defended the sugarcane farmer on the ground. Regulations were drawn up in about 2003. They were never gazetted. It has had to take again President Uhuru's government through Minister Munya to gazette them on 27th May this year. Amongst the issues that are in these gazetted regulations include issues of farmers' organizations, include issues of crop production cycle. It includes issues of pricing mechanism, the Sugar Price Committee, includes issues of payment methods, quality payment methods. These elements had been missing, and for once now, with the gazettement of these regulations, the sugarcane farmer has recourse to the law, is protected, and we hail the government for the regulations being coming into being. Above all, the regulations outline contractual farming. The regulations are for soko huru, of which we farmers have been calling for, because previously farmers were zoned as slaves to non-performing mills. But that is no more. Now we are free to contract with any miller or a miller that pays us better. So, the major problem sugarcane farmers are passing through is non-payment. Farmers are owed a lot of arrears, particularly by government mills. Government mills owe farmers over 1.5 billion shillings as we speak now. Take the case of Nzoia. They have arrears of about 170 million. They've accumulated in the recent few months arrears now going over 200 million. This non-payment to farmers creates reproduction squeeze within farmers' families where they are unable to meet their daily needs. So the question of farmers not being paid for their sweat is a major issue. The second issue is the corruption in the sugar sector. Take these government mills again. Part of their problem is just pure theft of farmers' canes at the way bridges, pure theft of farmers through transport charges where there is mileage overcharge, pure theft through having farmers' cane deteriorate on the mills, on the fields for lack of transport equipment, etc. So the cultural practices that farmers are engaged in producing their product, selling to the factories, has been a problem because these state farms have been non-performing. The fact that now the government had decided to lease them to performers, people with the capacity, people with their means, people with their wherewithal and the technology to inject in these non-performing factories, we believe is going to be a very good solution to issues that have been affecting farmers previously. So I think there is something that the sugarcane farmers have lacked, perhaps due to lack of imagination on leadership or whatever, but when it comes to Mumias and when it comes to the sugar industry in particular, I think all of us sugarcane farmers hail the chairman of the Council of Governors, His Excellency, Governor Oparanya. Governor Oparanya has steadfastly stood for the revival of Mumias since it went down. And since the revival, since Mumias went down, he, as a county government of Kakamega, has striven for Mumias to be revived. He set up a committee. He has even budgeted for some money for crop development. This is the only governor that I'm aware of whose budget has included money for crop development of his people. But one thing that perhaps should also come up in terms of imagination is, in my view, the long closure of Mumias, the long closure of places like Nzoia, recently when there was a lack of raw material, sugarcane. I think, in my view, for these areas to be declared disaster zones. Once they are declared disaster zones, then the drought management authority in this country should come in handy to bail out these farmers, because the economic stimulus projects in this country have not benefited much the sugarcane farmer. But we, from the Kenya National Alliance of Sugarcane Farmers organizations, we suggest to government that they must embark on a program to declare these zones that have been affected by lack of payment or long factory closures, because most of them have been government. Once they are declared national disaster zones, then the government, through its own national drought disaster management program and the international humanitarian disaster programs, could come in handy to assist these farmers that have for long been suffering, but otherwise have been very productive. The sugarcane has been helping them to take care of their families. The sugar companies have been assisting in terms of other even corporate social responsibility projects like schools, health projects, roads in the area, and road infrastructure, etc. We believe privatization of these sugar mills is something the government should have done like yesterday. The government mills, I've already told you, as far as we farmers are concerned, have been non-performing. They have been non-performing on account of managements employed by government that have not performed. These managers have stolen from these factories. This is why these factories have not paid farmers. This is why these factories are unable to pay their workers. And in the end, they resort again to government so that the government bails them out. And our question has been, you as the manager of the government sugar factory, you procured cane from the farmer, you crushed the cane, you sold the cane, the sugar, you pocketed the money. Since when did President Uhuru pocket that money? Other than you. You've eaten the money, you should be in jail. But unfortunately, the government has not taken a position on that, on these issues. These managers are just working scot-free while these factories are languishing. Now, the solution has been privatization so that they can be in tandem with the private sector of the industry. West Kenya, Putali, Kibos, Transmara, Sukari. These perform, they pay farmers within 1 week, they meet their obligations. So if the government sector is also privatized, and now the government has changed tact, instead of privatization, because too much politics, community lands, etc., they want to lease. For us, we support the project. The only request we make of government is, as they look for those who will lease these factories, let them be people who have been proven in practice to have performed in the sugar subsector wherever they're coming from, people who can benchmark with the best performers in Africa like Mauritius, Malawi, South Africa, Sudan. Outside of these kind of parameters, then we do not wish for rogue characters to come into this sector. They will ruin it. But overall, we do support the listing. Again?
How much do you need?
I think what we do not need much from government. For us, all we've been calling for is deregulation of the industry so that it's run by the farmer and the miller. In the case of these foreign factories, these sick factories, the government-owned factories, on account of managerial corruption and mismanagement, all that has been needed was the government to do a debt write-off, which Honorable Munya announced yesterday that government has now agreed on a debt write-off of 62 billion Kenyan shillings that these factories owe. And once that debt write-off is done, then the balance sheets will be clean, and any investor, and there are so many people out there who have interest in investing. The preponderance of the private sector in the industry over the past 10 years is a demonstration that there is money out there interested in investment in the sugar industry. So for us, once that balance sheet is clean, then investors will just flock into the industry. That is all that has been missing.
Any amount that you have received?
None, but from the Honorable Munya statement yesterday, he said about 62 billion is going to be written off, and the government is juggling its paperwork so that shortly the documentation, maybe session papers of parliament, the legalization of the write-off will be done, which can be shown to any willing investor.
If I forget the last one.
The issue of cartels in the factories is an overused word. Yes, they are crooks. These are just crooks. It's not that they are cartels. You know, these are just crooks, people who are interested to use shortcuts, people who are interested in undercutting the law, people who take shortcuts. These are the crooks that the minister gazetted yesterday, that no more import license to be issued until new regulations of import-export are put in place. The names are known. These are local Kenyan crooks, probably in alliance with the international partners. So it's not like they are cartel, but they are just well-known individuals who like shortcuts. And we want to hail President Uhuru's government for its now steadfast policy, first having set up the Sugar Task Force to look into issues affecting the industry and solutions to the same. And now we can see it being manifest in pronouncements by the Minister for Agriculture to demonstrate that actually President Uhuru means what he says. He is up and running to resolve long-standing issues in the sugar industry. I think the debt write-off that the minister announced yesterday included KRA, debts of about 4 billion. KRA, as an important government agency, critical for the development of provision of funds for the consolidated fund and other funds for development of this country, is a critical element. But one note when it comes to the sugar industry, which is a big contributor to the KRA when it comes to this mismanagement and corruption that has entailed particularly the state sector of the industry. KRA has been so fast in freezing the accounts so that these factories are unable to perform. In my view, KRA should be pro-enterprise generation. KRA should be pro-development in this approach. KRA should be proactive in collecting the taxes, particularly of these characters in the sugar industry, the crooks that have stolen from the sugar industry. KRA should go after them. The managers that have run down the industry, who have stolen money from the industry so that it's unable even to generate more wealth for the country, are well known. In my view, all these managers running from those who have run down in Zoya, those who have run down Sony, those who have run down Nyando belt factories through Sony, KRA should go after them. They are laundering wealth in the rural areas like never before, and these are the people who should pay the money that KRA demands from these factories, not the factories themselves.